It had been 3 days since I returned home for the summer, and something already felt off. Not in the air, not in the weather, in him. Ryan, my stepbrother. We were never close. When our parents married 5 years ago, we mostly stayed out of each other's way. He was the quiet, sarcastic type, always glued to his guitar or headphones. I had my own world, school, friends, and Daniel, my boyfriend of 2 years. But the version of Ryan I came back to? He was different. Taller, broader, sure. But it wasn't just that. His eyes held a calm I didn't remember. A kind of quiet confidence that made it impossible to look away. The first night, I caught him staring. I thought I imagined it. He was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, a lazy smirk tugging at his mouth when I passed by in my pajama shorts. Our eyes met. I froze. He didn't. He held the look like he was testing me. I brushed it off and went to bed. But the next morning, it happened again. I was making coffee. He walked in, shirtless, damp from a shower, towel over his shoulder. I tried not to notice. Still steal the last cup, huh? He said, walking straight to the pot. His voice had a new edge, not aggressive, but intentional. I mumbled something, keeping my eyes on the mug. He stood too close when he reached past me. Not touching, but the air between us shifted. It made my chest tight. Daniel texted me later that day. He missed me, wanted to FaceTime. I didn't respond immediately. I stared at the screen too long before finally typing. Maybe later. Something was wrong with me. I blamed jet lag. That evening, Ryan was on the patio playing guitar. The sun was setting. His fingers moved like he wasn't even thinking, like music poured out of his bones. He looked up once, saw me watching. He didn't smile. Didn't stop. Just kept playing. I stayed longer than I should have. At dinner, my mom talked about redecorating the living room. Ryan offered to help her paint, surprising everyone. He joked, made her laugh. I watched him more than I ate. I didn't realize until later that he was watching me back just as much. By the third night, I couldn't deny it. I was thinking about him too often. Wondering when he'd come downstairs, what shirt he'd wear, what joke he'd make. I hated it. I had Daniel. He was sweet, loyal, boring in a way that used to feel safe. Ryan was chaos wrapped in calm, and I was starting to crave it. That night, I stayed up scrolling through old photos of me and Daniel. We looked so happy last summer. I zoomed in on his smile, remembered the way he held my hand during long drives. And yet, my heart beat faster thinking about Ryan's smirk, his voice saying my name. I heard footsteps in the hallway around midnight. My door was open just a crack. He walked past, paused. I pretended to scroll, but I wasn't reading. A few seconds later, the footsteps returned. My door creaked slightly, but he didn't come in. Just stood there. I could feel him. "You're still up," he said, voice low. "Could say the same to you." He leaned on the doorframe. I didn't look directly at him, scared of what my face might show. "You used to go to bed at 10. College turned you wild." I shrugged. Insomnia. A beat of silence. "You want tea?" he asked. I was gonna make some. "Sure," I said. He walked off without another word. In the kitchen, we didn't say much. I sat on the counter, watching him boil water. It should have been boring. It wasn't. His movements were fluid, almost deliberate, like he knew I was watching. He handed me a mug, fingers brushing mine. "Thanks." He leaned against the counter opposite me, sipping his own. "Still dating that guy?" I paused. "Yeah." He nodded, not saying more. But his eyes said plenty. Back in my room, I closed the door and sat in the dark for a long time. I sipped the tea. It was too sweet. I didn't care. My phone lit up, a message from Daniel. "Still up?" I turned it face down. Ryan was just on the other side of the wall. I imagined him lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. I wondered if he was thinking about me too. It scared me how much I wanted the answer to be yes. The next night, I was in bed, scrolling through messages I had no intention of answering. Daniel had called twice. I let it ring. My mind wasn't with him. It hadn't been for days. I kept replaying moments with Ryan, reading too far into glances, words, silences. I hated how it made me feel nervous, alive, guilty. Then there was a knock. Light, like he didn't want to wake anyone. I didn't respond right away. He cracked the door open. "You awake?" I sat up.
Yeah.
He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Can't sleep." I motioned to the chair by the window.
He didn't take it.
Instead, he sat on the edge of my bed. It wasn't weird at first until it was. The distance between us was minimal. I pulled my blanket higher. He was wearing a hoodie, hair slightly damp, eyes too focused. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Just tired." He looked around the room like he hadn't seen it in years, even though it hadn't changed. "Still smells like vanilla in here." I smiled, nervous. "Habit." He leaned back on his hands, glancing at me. "Remember when you hated me?" "I didn't hate you. You avoided me like the plague. You were a jerk." He smirked. "Still am."
His voice was softer now.
My heart was hammering. I should have told him to leave, reminded him that this was a line we didn't cross. But I didn't. I just watched him. His presence filled the room, louder than any sound. The silence between us felt heavy, charged. "You and Daniel," he said suddenly. "You serious?" "Yeah," I replied. 2 years. "You love him?" I hesitated. That pause gave away too much. He noticed. "That's a long pause." "It's complicated." He nodded slowly. I figured. "Why are you here?" I asked. "I don't know." He looked me dead in the eye. "You've been on my mind." My breath hitched. I wanted to say it was inappropriate. I wanted to tell him to go. But all I said was, "You shouldn't say that." "I know," he said, leaning in slightly. "Doesn't mean it's not true." There was a moment, so brief but undeniable, where he looked at my lips. I felt it like a jolt. I looked away, but he didn't. He didn't move closer, didn't touch me, but everything about him said he wanted to. My skin tingled like it had already happened. "I should go," he said finally. "Probably." But neither of us moved. The pause stretched until I felt suffocated.
My throat was dry.
"You're not going to tell me to leave," he said. "I should. But you won't." My stomach flipped. He stood slowly. I followed him with my eyes, trying to ignore how flushed I felt. At the door, he turned. "If you want me to come back tomorrow, leave the door open." He left. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, hating myself for what I felt. I hated how much I wanted him to come back. The next morning, I was distant with everyone. Daniel texted again. I responded this time. "Been tired." "Sorry." He replied instantly. Too sweet, too trusting. I buried myself in distractions all day. Cleaned, helped my mom, went for a walk. Ryan was out for most of it. When he came home, I didn't look at him. I couldn't. But I felt him, his energy, his stare. At dinner, he made everyone laugh. I kept my head down. Later that night, I showered and changed, left the door slightly open without thinking. When I realized, I froze. Was I doing it for him? Or just being careless? I stared at the gap for 10 minutes, debating. I didn't close it. Minutes passed. Then footsteps. My pulse quickened. He stood in the doorway again. I looked up. No words this time. He entered slowly, shutting the door behind him. The click of the lock wasn't loud, but it was deafening in my ears. He sat beside me again. This time closer. "I shouldn't be here," he said. "I know." "Then tell me to leave." I didn't. My chest rose and fell fast. His hand brushed mine. I didn't pull away. We sat like that, just touching, saying nothing. Then he looked at me again. His eyes searched mine. I felt the question without him asking. "I don't know what we're doing," I whispered. "Neither do I," he said. "But I don't want to stop." That kiss didn't happen that night. But the moment lingered, humming beneath my skin. I couldn't pretend anymore. Something was happening between us, and I was letting it, even though I knew it would cost me everything. The rain hit the windows harder than I expected for a summer storm. It was almost poetic how the world outside felt like it was echoing everything inside me. Loud, chaotic, impossible to ignore. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at Daniel's name lighting up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Again. The guilt didn't even sting as much as it should have. Not anymore. The power flickered once, then again, before going out completely. I could hear someone moving downstairs. A part of me already knew who it was. I moved quietly, bare feet against the cold floor. No plan, no excuse, just pulled forward by something I didn't want to name. He was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a flashlight sitting on the island, casting shadows across his face. He looked up, not surprised. "Storm knocked it out," he said, voice low. I nodded. I noticed. He poured a drink into 2 glasses. Whiskey. No ice. Handed me one without asking. Our fingers brushed again, and it felt familiar now, like it was supposed to happen. I took a sip. Burned going down. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. The silence between us had changed. It wasn't tension anymore. It was expectation. I set my glass down. He did the same. He stepped closer. I didn't move. He reached out, touched a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're shaking." "I know." He studied me like he was memorizing every detail. "Say something." "I can't," I said. "Because if I speak, I'll stop this." "Do you want to stop?" I didn't answer. That was my answer. His hand was on my jaw before I could think, tilting my face toward his. His thumb brushed the corner of my mouth. "Tell me no," he whispered. I should have. I wanted to, but the words wouldn't come. My breath caught as he leaned in, lips barely grazing mine. Not quite a kiss, an invitation. My body leaned forward before I even realized it. Our mouths met, slow and hesitant at first, then deeper, needier. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. My fingers dug into his shirt, pulling him in, grounding myself against his chest. He groaned softly against my mouth, and something in me snapped. There was no logic, no morality, just heat and hunger and surrender. Every thought about Daniel, about right or wrong, dissolved in the press of skin and breath. He lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapped around his waist. Our mouths never broke contact. Every second felt like borrowed time, and I didn't care. I wanted to drown in it. We stumbled through the hallway, finding each other, like instinct. By the time we reached the bed, we were stripped of everything: clothes, hesitation, guilt. It was raw, desperate, slow in some moments, fast in others, but always real. Every touch left fire in its wake. Every breath was shared. Every look said more than words ever could. He whispered my name like it meant something sacred. I held on to him like letting go would ruin me. Time became meaningless. All I knew was the way he felt, the way he looked at me, the way he made me forget the world outside that bedroom. After, we lay tangled in silence, the storm outside still raging. I listened to his breathing, slower now. Mine was too. My body was still humming, skin still tingling. But my mind was screaming. I turned to him. What did we just do? He looked at me, quiet. Something we can't undo. The reality of it hit like a punch to the chest. I sat up, pulling the blanket tighter around myself. My heart was still pounding, but for different reasons now. I cheated, I said. He sat up too, resting his elbows on his knees. We both did. I have to tell him. He shook his head. What are you going to say? That you slept with your stepbrother during a blackout while your boyfriend called, and you ignore him. My throat closed up. The way he said it, blunt, unapologetic, made it worse. But he was right. I can't look at him the same way now. You haven't looked at him the same since you got here. That doesn't make this okay. I'm not asking you to say it's okay, he said. I'm not asking for anything. Then what was this?
He looked at me for a long time.
It was real. The room felt too small. The air too thick. I needed to breathe, to think, but nothing made sense. Everything in me wanted to rewind. But at the same time, a deeper part of me didn't regret it. And that terrified me the most. I woke up alone. The storm had passed, the silence that followed almost cruel. I pulled the sheets tighter, searching for any trace that he'd been there. Nothing. Just the ache in my body and the noise in my head. I stared at the ceiling, numb. Part of me expected him to come back. Another part hated that I even wanted that. My phone had 4 missed calls from Daniel. 3 texts. One said he was worried. One asked if I was okay. The last one, call me when you can. I love you. I stared at it for a long time, then turned the phone face down. Downstairs, everything was normal. Too normal. My mom was humming in the kitchen. Ryan was on the couch, legs stretched out, flipping through a magazine like nothing had changed. He looked up once. Our eyes met, and he looked away before I could read anything on his face. My stomach twisted. I couldn't sit there. I made up some excuse, said I had a headache, and locked myself in the bathroom. I stared at my reflection. I didn't recognize myself. I looked the same, but everything inside me had shifted. I wanted to cry, scream, vomit, anything, but I just stood there, silent. Later that day, Daniel FaceTimed. I answered this time. His face lit up when he saw me. Finally. I was getting worried. Sorry, I said. The storm knocked everything out. I figured. I just missed you. I forced a smile. I missed you too. He talked about his day, his job, the restaurant we always said we'd try. I nodded, laughed where I was supposed to, but I barely heard him. Every word felt like a lie. Every smile, a betrayal. I kept imagining him finding out. The look on his face. How it would destroy him. And, the worst part? A piece of me still wanted Ryan more. After we hung up, I stayed in bed. Ryan didn't knock, didn't text, didn't even glance at me through dinner. It was like it never happened. Like I'd imagined it all. The distance was sharp, and it hurt in ways I didn't expect. 3 days passed. We said nothing. The tension between us shifted again, but this time it wasn't electricity. It was silence, heavy and cold. I hated him for acting like it meant nothing. I hated myself for wishing he'd do it again. I finally broke. I cornered him outside, by the garage, where no one could hear. Are we going to pretend it didn't happen? He looked at me, calm as ever. What do you want me to say? Anything. It was a mistake, he said, but it's not one I regret. Then why are you avoiding me? Because if I don't, it'll happen again. Would that be so bad? He stepped closer.
Yes.
Because you'll hate yourself more than you already do. And you should. I flinched. You're an asshole. Maybe. But I'm right. I walked away before he could say anything else. That night, I packed a bag. Told my mom I was visiting a friend for a few days. She didn't question it. I drove to a hotel and checked in alone. I needed distance. From the house, from him, from myself. In the hotel room, I sat on the bed with my phone in my hand for hours. I typed out a message to Daniel a dozen times. We need to talk. I need to tell you something. I messed up, then deleted every version. I couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, I called my best friend, Lily. She knew about Daniel. She didn't know about Ryan. Until now. I told her everything. Every moment. Every detail. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, the line was quiet for a long time. Then, do you love him? I swallowed. I don't know. Do you love Daniel? I did. I think I still do. But it's not the same. You need to tell him. I will. When? I don't know. She sighed. Then stop pretending you're the victim. You made a choice. Now, make another one. She hung up. She was right. I'd been floating in between, hiding in silence, hoping time would fix it for me. But time just made the guilt louder. 2 days later, I went back home. Ryan was in the garage, working on his car. He didn't look up when I walked in. I'm leaving next week, I said. He wiped his hands on a rag. Back to school? Yeah. He finally looked at me. You gonna tell him? Yes. He nodded like that was all he needed to know. We're done, right? I nodded. Yeah. He took a step closer. For a second, I thought he might kiss me. But he just said, good. Then he walked away. That night, he knocked once. Same as before. I opened the door. No words. Just his eyes, waiting for permission. I didn't speak. I didn't move. He stood there. And I hated that I still wanted him to come in.